I mean, I think Pereira, when he actually weighed into the fight, was above 220.
Yeah.
When he was inside the octagon for the fight, was above 220. Whereas you got to remember when Izzy fought Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title, he was only 194.
Yeah.
I mean, Izzy's one of those guys that
he's not cutting that much weight.
He's not cutting any weight. And even when he wanted to go up to light heavyweight, he's like, I'm not cutting any weight. I'm going to fight as I fight.
Which makes sense. You know, especially if you're not planning on making that transition permanently, you don't want to go and add on all that size. And the other thing that drives me nuts about when I hear these fighters, and I think it's really the strength and conditioning coaches feeding bullshit more than it is the fighters. They're just listening to what they're being told. But you don't put on 20 pounds of muscle in a month. You ever hear these guys in fighter meetings? We'll be talking to them and be like, well, you know, I put on about 10 pounds of lean muscle mass for this camp. I'm like, this particular camp,
in 6
you've
weeks,
put on
10 pounds.
10 pounds of muscle mass.
How are you going to pass your piss test?
Yeah. What do you? What supplements are you taking for that?
Air quotes supplements.
Like, get the fuck out. You didn't put on 10 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You're out of your mind.
Yeah. You probably gained some water weight. And it's like
you got stronger.
What kind of scanning are they doing of their body composition before they say these things?
It's the coach doing the eyeball scan saying that you put on 10 pounds of muscle for this one.
Well, you know, I always go back to the Roy Jones Jr. Ruiz fight. When he fought John Ruiz, he went up to heavyweight, remember? And he got very muscular. He was real big. He was about, I mean, he wasn't too heavy for a heavyweight. I want to say Roy weighed like 200 pounds, just a little over 200 pounds maybe. See what he weighed for that John Ruiz fight. Does it say?
193.
Oh, was it really? That's all he weighed?
Well, the heavyweight for what the heavyweight for boxing
I think that's
is different,
now.
Right?
They're saying now he weighs 193. But what did he weigh when he fought John Ruiz? So just does it say there? Oh, he said he weighed 193 and Ruiz was 226.
226, yeah.
Interesting. But, you know, Roy was so fucking talented. But when Roy went down in weight and then fought Tarver in his next fight, he looked deflated.
Yeah.
He looked like he had just really drained himself to make that weight cut.
Yeah, that's why you see these guys drop down, man. It
looked terrible and then got knocked out.
Very few people can do it. Jose Aldo, somehow.
I don't know.
Came down and
looked great.
Still look good.
I think what happened with Aldo is he never really had a serious nutritionist.
Yeah.
Where someone was like planning his meals, breaking it down by calories. And
he was just cutting all that weight for the 45. And it's like, well, you could have been a lot smaller way before you even got to that weight cut.
Because I remember when he was at the top of the heap at 145, he was heavy, man.
Yeah,
he was walking around.
He was
170.
struggling to make those weight cuts. So it's like, and when he said he was going down to bantamweight, it's like, well, how are you going to go down to bantamweight? You used to struggle to make 145 pounds.
Yeah.
Lifestyle changes.
Yeah, lifestyle changes. And some guys, that's the move. And some guys, you know, it just ruins them because they drain so much out of their body. They're not durable anymore.
Yeah. I joked about, I've talked to like Nick Zick and Brian Butler, my manager. I'm like, well, maybe I'll come back on 145. And they're like, yeah. And I talked to Ian Larios, who does all my weight cuts. He's like, are you out of your fucking mind, dude? He's like, just because you're skinnier now doesn't mean you can drop a whole weight class and have no trouble making that weight.
Were you thinking about it at one point in time of doing one more fight?
Oh, man, I've thought about it many, many times.
Did you think about it after Oliveira became the champ? Because when you beat Oliveira...
He was not... Yeah, he... you know, not really, because we were on such different trajectories. It's like... Just because at the time I had a win, which I loved having over him. I loved being the last guy that had beaten the champion, which is no longer the case. But like for me to come back and think I'm going to even come close to getting that matchup, it's like, well, that's not going to happen. I'm going to have to win and beat all these insane, hungry contenders before I even get to sniff at that belt. So
he was an interesting case. He still is an interesting case because he was a guy who was kind of known as a guy who fell apart.
A quitter a little bit. Yeah.
Cub Swanson knocked him out. A bunch of guys had beat him.
Max Holloway had like that weird neck thing going on.
What happened to the Max Holloway fight?
Remember he had like a weird stinger almost in his neck, I think. And he kind of just crumbled in the corner and like tapped out. I think it was a legit thing with his, with his neck.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It was kind of scary.
I forgot about that. Yeah, man.
But then everybody was calling him a quitter, all this, and it's like,
And he just turned a corner and then became the baddest motherfucker in the weight class.
Yeah.
And not just the baddest motherfucker in the weight class, but one of the best motherfuckers in the sport. When he knocked out Chandler and he beat the shit out of Gaethje, when he was putting it on people, you got to go, God damn, he's good.
I'm curious to see if he comes back and gets back to that Islam fight, because he seems to want it. At first, it didn't seem like after you've been there with Islam, I think a lot of people go, oh, I don't know if I want to get back in there right away.
He's on
and then
another level.
You think about it for a while.
What does it say here? Oliveira suffered a micro tear in his esophagus. Wow.
And you know what that was probably due to?
He said he's injured his neck in training, but did physical therapy and thought everything was fine. What do you think
probably
it's due to?
all of the weight cuts that he had been doing to make 145 pounds back in the day.
That's right, the 45.
Now, he probably heard it in training legit.
Yeah.
But when you're constantly dehydrating yourself camp after camp after camp. And I remember when he fought me, he was still trying to go back down to 145 pounds.
Jesus.
Which is why he wasn't as big. I mean, I must have been 20 pounds heavier than him when I fought him back then.
And so then he made a conscious decision to stay at 55.
He said, I'm gonna stay here, because they told him you have no choice. So like you're either gonna fight in this weight class or you're gonna keep missing and screwing yourself over.
It's crazy because his power developed. Like when he hit Gaethje said no one ever hit him that hard before. He said he felt it in his teeth.
And even back in the day when he was still Mr. Skinny Charles Oliveira, and he kicked me a few times, I remember being like, God damn. I thought I was going to buzzsaw through this guy on the feet, and he lands a few shots, and you could see where that strength was there. That, again, another one of those just wiry guys where you kind of underestimate their power, and then they hit you, and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Long, lean. It's a great build for fighting. You look at some of the great fighters of our time, like the long, lean guys.
It's the best build, in my opinion.
Because you have the reach advantage.
Reach, jiu-jitsu, you can wrap everybody up. You can sneak your arms in through. You're not as bulky, which maybe you don't have as much of that brunt kind of power that some of the guys that are shorter and stockier would have in the division. But I think that long, lean muscle for MMA is the way to be. And I was just short and stumpy. I have no reach. None of those benefits, unfortunately.
Yeah, but then look at Mighty Mouse. He's short and stumpy too, and he's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
If not the greatest. He's in the conversation. I mean, I don't think there is one real greatest of all time. Khabib is most certainly in the conversation. John Jones.
John Jones, for sure.
John Jones has got the perfect build.